Jago, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me, Guy. Life's very good. As you know, I've just made it back to the UK. I've been away for the last 4 months on my own expedition, but happy to be home.
Nice. And where are you now? Where's home?
Home for me is Oxford at the moment. I'm still living with my parents, but I intend to move out as soon as possible. That's what I'm doing now, getting to work.
And what's going on there? What were you doing in Oxford before?
So I was at Bristol University for 3 years and then finished then. Spent about 3 or 4 months making as much money as I could through various jobs, sort of site work, hospitality, stuff like that. And then from there, flew out with my mates, and we traveled started in Johannesburg, and then traveled up to Kenya, over the course of 4 months, on motorbikes, which was fantastic.
Excellent. We'll get into that in a bit. I've got a little segue here and there, but yeah, looking forward to hearing about that. And what about now? What's a normal day look like for you
So
in Oxford?
for me, I'm an aspiring entrepreneur. I've had a business that I've been working on for the last couple of years. But obviously being at uni, I never was able to give it enough time to get the traction that I liked. We had a client or two before. So now that I'm back, it's just really giving everything I've got into that, trying to get some traction, get off the ground, make some sort of consistent income. It's in social media marketing. And it's going well. It's going well. We need to, right now, my days look like wake up probably 7 a.m., do a couple of bits, stretch, go to the gym, and then I will come home and just do outreach. So literally just prospecting potential clients, hoping that somebody comes back and is looking for the service, sign them on some sales calls, and go from there.
Nice. So you having much luck with it? Much feedback?
Still getting systems set up. So I'm trying to build a system that I can do sort of at scale. So I'm looking at running like 4 or 5 different accounts on Instagram and stuff like that, and LinkedIn, Facebook. But all of that stuff takes a bit of time to warm up. Like if I just start cold DMing people, then I'll just get banned on anything. So I need to do it the right way, which will take a few weeks. Like I said, I've only been back working for a week or so, so it's still very early stages, but it's looking promising, Guy.
So that's your plan going forward then. You're locking in
That
something
yeah,
in.
that's my goal. That's what I'm on at the moment.
Perfect. And what did you study to get into that? Was it anything related or totally different, like everybody else?
Um, So I did I did business management at Bristol, which I liked, but not like I started in my second year at uni. I had a little bit of time over the summer. I'd come back from being away and I didn't really know what to do with myself for a couple of months. And then I, one way or another, fell into this rabbit hole of getting sort of obsessed with the idea of being a successful entrepreneur. Just because through the stuff that I like to do, what I've learned, the way that I'd like to live my life, can only really be accomplished if I work for myself, and have that sort of locational time freedom. So now I know that that's what I want to do. That's where I want to go in my life. So yeah, that's how I landed into that. I had a business partner that I started out with. His dad was a plastic surgeon. So we originally started looking down that route.
I could
Yeah.
use his knowledge somewhere down the line.
Don't be too hard on yourself, Guy. You got time, mate.
Face for
But yeah,
radio. I think that's what it's called.
exactly. But yeah, so we started looking down that direction. And from there, slightly realized that the systems that we needed to build weren't very like generic. We were looking at automation. We were looking at sort of how we can implement AI. But plastic surgery is a very hands-on field. And if you're paying 20 grand for a surgery, for example, you need a very hands-on, very professional, personal approach, which can't really be factored into by sort of AI platforms and message follow-ups and stuff like that. So we moved into dentistry, which just seemed like the next closest thing. And I've now got a business partner who I work with who's established dentist in London and Dubai, who's got 3 clinics at the moment, and we're working together to try and provide a solution.
And you can do all that remotely? Do you have to be on site anywhere or are you
No, so that's
just
it's
independent?
my own business. So at the moment I'm literally just doing it out of my bedroom. I think my dream is to set it up to a point where I can have total location and time freedom. And eventually, once we've got the proven systems and we've scaled at a good rate, I can even step back and hire people to take over my role. But right now, what I've got to do is build those systems that work, and sort of get proof of concept, if you will, set up some standard operating procedures for how we run the company. But my whole goal with this isn't to create the most effective, the most practical, like sort of official business. Is to create something that generates consistent income, provides value to dentists, and is also something I can totally remove myself from the equation.
To try and get somebody else to come in and do your work. You take
Longer
the
term, definitely.
profits. Yeah,
Yeah,
nice. Cash
we're
cow.
all figured out.
Ah, you've got to have an idea, mate. That's excellent. Great to hear. All right, so we're going to take it back a little bit. So you and I, we met in, as far as I remember, it was 2022. So it's almost 4 years ago now, which is
I think
quite
that's right.
scary. We
Yeah.
met in Peru, Bolivia, Peru,
Yeah,
Peru.
Bacachina.
I think it was Peru, yeah. Wakachina, that's
Yeah.
it, right?
Oh no, that's not. I think we actually met on the in Paracas on that boat for the
We
Galapagos,
met in a
the
boat,
poor man's Galapagos.
birding.
Yeah,
Ah, that's
the
right. Yes,
birding.
so yeah. Good job we've got
Exactly.
your young mind. Mine's getting a little bit old and jaded. Sorry. So yeah, that's
It's
fine.
only
Keep
come to
younger
me
people
now,
around
guy.
me. Keep you fresh. So
That's
what
so
do you
good.
remember about that trip? Not so much me and you, but just the whole trip. What do you remember about that?
Um,
What's your recollection?
I mean, I remember loving that trip. For me, obviously, I was only 18 at the time, and that was my first time really
My
properly
son.
away from home on my own. I think I'd done a little bit. I was very fortunate to have done a bit of travel with family up to that point. And before I came out to South America, I'd been on a ski season in Canada, and I went out there with my best mate as well. But South America for me was really my first 3 months of traveling totally on my own. So it was intense. There was times where I was a little bit nervous, a little bit scary, but I loved it. Looking back, loved every single minute of it. Sort of opened my eyes to a whole world that I didn't know was there.
And why did you choose South America? Of every option available, no? For me, it's quite a brave decision, at 18 anyway. I wouldn't want to go when I was that age. What
Right.
about you?
I think honestly, it's embarrassing to admit it. Partially was an ego thing.
Cocaine and women?
In the not quite, guy. It was on the list, but it wasn't the main reason. No. So the
I
reason I
just
say it was an
report the
ego thing
news.
is just it's just because it was like when I was that age, everybody I knew, everybody and their nan was flying out to Southeast Asia. And the options in my head, the only two options were Southeast Asia or South America. And I knew next to nobody going out there. And it was the fact that I was traveling on my own. I just wanted to do something that was completely out of my comfort zone. Because I look at a lot of the people that did travel Southeast Asia and they had a great time, but it was basically Brits abroad. Like it was all the same mates they ran into, just again and again and again, the same activities. Whereas I think South America, there's a little bit of that, but if you look for it, you can get away from it quite quickly as well.
Yeah, the
And
Green
yeah,
Book Trail, if you like. Yeah.
exactly.
So what about the trip in particular? Is there any special memories you've got that stick out?
Um, well, meeting you was obviously a highlight, guy.
Oh, mate.
Um,
I'll give you a fiver later.
you did pay me to say that. But yeah,
That's
I
my
think
boy.
Peru was amazing. Peru was amazing. I think it was very touristy. Like it was a lot of tourism coming through, a lot of English speakers, but for good reason. At the same time, like there was substance to it. There was some very cool things to do. I'd never really done any of the sort of hiking or the extreme sports stuff that I was doing out there. Even like the what was it, the sand skiing, all that sort of thing. And there was just a lot of variety as well, which I loved. You could go from sort of freezing cold sea climates to desert oasis, and then back again into the mountains, something like that. So that was definitely one of my highlights. I think where I had the most fun was probably the last week of my trip. I was in Rio, um, and I actually ran out of money. Funny story. I ran out of money. Yeah, but I surprise, surprise.
Real? How did that
Uh,
happen?
yeah, well, I sort of ran out before I got there, but I had the flight booked. So when I got to Rio, I had no money, but I had to find a way to survive for 2 weeks in Rio. And I did a bit of hostel hopping until eventually one of them told me if I bartended every night, then they give me free accom, and
Right.
breakfast and lunch every day. So I did, which also meant free drinks every day. So I had an absolute ball there. They'd have the local drink in Rio is called a caipirinha. You're probably familiar, and they are
I may have dabbled, yeah.
absolutely lethal. They are, the way we were pouring them, it was like a tablespoon of sugar. You'd squeeze about 3 whole limes into the same cup, and then you'd just pour about 6 shots worth of rum, cachaça,
Just
right to the top. Yeah. So that they would definitely
indulgent.
catch me at 18 as well. They caught me off guard a couple of times, but I had a ball. Really loved it out there.
Have you been back since or not?
Not to Rio. I'd like to. My only little hang up with Rio for me personally was just how dangerous it was. Like
Yeah.
I didn't have a day go by where I didn't witness a crime in the streets, whether it was somebody getting beaten up. I saw one in particular. There was a couple walking down the road. And I was literally just looking out the window, and this guy was harassing them. So a police officer pulls up in his car, gets out his car, like sort of hands on hips, like you're gonna stop that now. The guy that was harassing them walks over to the police officer and just starts beating him up, like literally wailing on the guy. And I was just sat there like, how is this going on right now? I couldn't
Not in
quite get my
Oxford
head around it.
now.
I'm not in Oxford anymore. No, definitely
No,
not. But I love it. I would love to go back. It's definitely on the list. I think maybe just with a bit more support and with a little bit, like a little few caipirinhas in my system, probably wiser.
definitely, yeah. I think you'll forget all of that when you get there and still go ape shit. I think that's
Yeah.
my prediction
Let's
for
not
your
think
next
about
trip.
that now, guy.
But as long as you get back in one piece, that's the main thing. And be nice to everybody. All right, so this part,
Obviously.
mate, like I said, I know you've just returned from a big juicy trip across Africa. We'll get into that in a minute. So the benefit of anyone with a short attention span, like pretty much everyone these days, I like to do a too long, didn't listen, like a TLDR kind of thing. So just like a summary of you, if you can try and fit it into 1 minute, what you've done since you maybe uni and what you're up to now. So just, yeah, just a little summary if you can. Keep it short. Sweet.
Um, okay. Yeah, let's go for it. So my name is Jago Brooks. I'm 22 years old. Like I said before, I've just finished university at Bristol. Had a fantastic time there. Did primary and secondary school before that, like everybody else. Um, Between uni and school, I went on a gap year where I met Guy. I did a season in Canada, went backpacking in South America, did some interrailing around Europe and loved every minute of it. Slightly fell in love with the traveling lifestyle, and just being able to go out and see different parts of the world. But yeah, since being at uni, started my own business, trying to get some traction with that. I've got, for me personally, my dream is to reach a place where I can operate a business from anywhere in the world, working the hours that work for me, and generate the income I need to do the silly things that I'd like to do with my life. But yeah, I think that's me summed up.
Perfect. Yeah, that's your new Hinge profile. I'll send you a little snippet.
Yeah, come
There you
on.
go, mate. Told you I'll get you laid. Anyway, all right. So, all right. So
Feedback.
now Africa, talk to me. Where, why, what the fuck?
It's a very good
Fill in the
question.
gaps.
So Africa for
Thanks. I
me
thought about that
wasn't,
a lot.
yeah.
Very
For me,
often.
it wasn't like a destination that was always on my agenda. I don't know. It wasn't that I didn't want to go. I just never really thought about it. Um, and I have one of my best mates, one of the boys that did the trip with me, is from Kenya. He grew up there. He's three generations Kenyan right now, white Kenyan. And I love him. So I've been out to visit him a couple of times at his, and it's just the most fantastic place in the world. Everybody out there has the most beautiful attitude, super friendly, super wild. Just a very unhinged place to be, but a lot of fun. So he's been racing motocross since he was about 4 years old, which I hadn't actually realized going into this trip. But he has always wanted to do a bike trip around Africa, and originally he wanted to do it with his dad, but his dad's getting on a bit, and I don't know if he could hack a 4 month trip around the bush. So he proposed it to me and my other mate at uni that we were living together with. Um, and we both went for it. So the other boy had a bit of riding experience himself. He'd also done a fair bit of backpacking around Africa just because he always loved it. So these two boys sort of had this trip on the back burner for a lot longer than I had. Um, but when they mentioned it to me, there was no way I was going to turn it down. Absolutely, let me get a bike license and learn how
Oh,
to ride. Yeah, exactly. Couldn't miss that.
oh.
And that's what I did. So I got my A2 in the UK, which is a motorbike license for a 500cc bike. And I had a motorbike. So I had a motorbike that I shared with one of the boys that I was living with, in my last year of uni. So that was all of my riding experience leading up to the trip. And in hindsight, probably wasn't enough. I don't know why I thought that, I don't know, 500 kilometers total on Bristol's tarmac roads would prepare me for the bush. And it didn't.
So Sahara.
But yeah, exactly.
They do
But I
say
wouldn't, I mean,
Bristol is the South Sudan of the UK, though, right?
yeah, no, that's definitely going to be the case. Experienced it firsthand myself. But yeah, So I was definitely first thing I found out in Africa was that I was wildly underprepared for what it was that we were doing. It was quite hardcore. We rode 15,000 kilometers in total, in 8 different countries. And it
15,000.
took us, yeah, 15,000 Ks. And it took us just under 4 months total. Um, and it was stellar. There were definitely some moments, some wobbles. But I think like any traveling is where it goes wrong, where the sort of beauty starts to unfold. That's where the stories come in. Um, it's when you realize that's why that you're actually out there.
Yeah, build some fortitude as well, right? Lovely.
Exactly.
So which countries did you go to? Where did you do in these 15,000 kilometers?
So our route started, me and Max, my Kenyan friend, flew out to Johannesburg, um, rendezvoused there, stayed with some family friends of his, and sort of just got accentuated in the place, bought our motorbikes, did some sort of recce for the route, got all our papers, our documents in check, that sort of thing. And then from there, after a week or so, we were ready. So we geared up, packed everything, and we rode down to Cape Town, where we found our other mate Fred, who'd started there because that's where his godfather lives. So he was staying with him. He got the bike there, um, and that's where we began. So we worked our way up from Cape Town, up the west coast of South Africa, which was absolutely gorgeous. I remember we got so totally lost. This is like week one. Into the travel, and we left Fred in charge of navigating, which in hindsight might have been a mistake for the area we were in. But next thing we knew, we ended up on about 80 kilometers, probably 60 to 80 kilometers of just deep sand. Now, I don't know if you've ever ridden a motorbike on sand, because I hadn't.
Not on
But
purpose, yeah.
it's a very different game than riding on tarmac. And especially when you then add to the fact that our bikes in total, with all the weight on, probably weighed about 300 kilos. I think on the first day of riding, I came off 20 times, something like that, in the sand,
On sand, though.
which was in thick sand. So the only thing that was hurt was my ego.
Ridiculous. Yeah, there you go.
Exactly. But definitely by also because we were in the middle of nowhere, there was no food, no water. So I went 2 days, didn't eat anything. Just like rationing our camel sacks, hoping to find a town. Sort of having the sat phone on like speed dial just in case we need to get in touch with emergency services. But luckily we made it through one way or another. And then yeah, continued up, went into Namibia, which was the most beautiful place I've been in my life, hands down. Literally
Very,
felt like riding
very,
a bike on Mars.
very nice.
Highly, highly recommend it, guy. You'd love it.
Nice.
I'm not sure I could live out there just because it's so intense, the climate and the sheer nothingness of it. Like we go 2 days at a time without seeing a town, which is pretty hardcore.
Good.
Especially when you're riding, that's like 8 hour flat out riding 2 days in a row. You don't see anything. Yeah. But stunning. The people were friendly. The landscape was just mind blowing. But yeah, absolutely loved it. So we made our way up to the Caprivi Strip, if you've heard of it, which is right at the top of Namibia. And from there, sort of came down and dropped into Botswana. Spent a week there, which was fantastic. Really good game out there, great animals and stuff. And it's because the whole country is full of them. It's not like there's a park; it's everywhere. So I remember within 20 minutes of crossing the border, we pulled over the side of the road to see what some people were looking at, and there was just a cheetah, like sat at the sort of edge of the tree line, which was literally about 3 meters away from us. And in hindsight, we talked to a guide. He said, "You guys are fucking idiots for doing that because they don't see a bike as a threat; they see it as prey." So if he'd been
Wow.
hungry, we
Something to
could have been
catch.
in some trouble.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, saw plenty of elephants, hippos, giraffes, stuff like that, all the way down. Had a couple of not so savory encounters. But then yeah, had a we actually got very lucky in Botswana. We had two of the other two boys I was riding with. They knew a guy that was involved in setting up these luxury camps around Bots. And I think they were saying that these camps generally they go for like 2 to 3K per night. If you wanted to book it
Wow.
locally. So we heard about that and we're like, well, obviously we're not going to do that. That's our budget for the whole trip, not one
What was it
night.
for 9 quid?
Yeah, exactly. But because they're family friends with this guy, he
Between
actually
us.
very kindly put us up for 3 days. Everything included, like personal guide for just the three of us, all the activities, which was fantastic. I had probably like three of the best days of the whole trip, without a doubt. It was just a magical few days. Open bar, as much food as you could
There it
eat, the
is.
works.
All the
Really,
caipirinhas.
exactly. No, really, really took out all the stops for us. But then yeah, so from there we made our way. I think it was Zimbabwe next into Vic Falls, which is a mega spot in itself. Again, very touristy, but not so like it's very expensive, very American. I feel like for most people that go to Africa, Vic Falls is probably the most touristy place in Africa. So it's the only place along the way that we actually met other white people. Um, Other than that, it was all locals, which was, I mean, it was sort of refreshing to talk to people that spoke perfect English,
Yeah.
sort of had the same cultural stuff, um, all that sort of thing. But that was a lot of fun. Got in a bit of trouble there. Made our way on, crossed him. They've got some pretty hairy roads when it comes to motorbikes in Zimbabwe, as we discovered pretty ruthlessly, mainly just sort of potholes, um, which destroyed our rims. I mean, we must have had across the trip about 10 punctures. And I actually, again, going into this trip, I knew very little about bikes. Changing a motorbike tire is not like changing a glass tire in any way.
Yeah, I've had a
In
few of
the
them.
it,
I get
I mean,
that.
like we would say it was taking us, especially because it's like enduro tires on these dirt bikes. It was like we'd sometimes take us 3 or 4 hours to change a tire. And you do it, you change it 3 or 4 hours, you puncture repaired it, it goes back in, and well, like we had a couple of times where the seal hadn't worked, or we had out of date sticky on bits, and then you'd have to take the whole thing off, do it again. Um, for the most part, it was all right. Like we'd have some beers, we'd get some tunes on, and we'd sort of take our time. But there was a couple of times, one in Namibia was probably the worst. We had this in the middle of the desert, no shade in any direction. Um, and you just had to firm it. It was like 40-degree heat, and we just had to say, we stripped off, put on some sun cream, and just say, let's get to work. And we did it in about 45 minutes, an hour or so. But it was pretty hardcore.
Come on!
But then, yeah, so from Zimbabwe, we made our way into Zambia. Cut through there very quickly. We started to panic, guy. There was, I don't know if you heard anything on the news, but there was some pretty serious political unfoldings in Tanzania. So there was a protest there where I don't know the exact numbers, but it was something a silly amount of people were dying over the new president that come into power. Um, and we were getting quite worried
Political
because
clashes then, yeah.
exactly, and we were getting a little bit nervous because we'd worked out that the very date that we'd set to enter Tanzania was they were having a protest on that day, and the protest was titled "They Can't Kill Us All." Um, so that obviously made us a little bit
Don't
nervous.
try!
Yeah, exactly.
Especially with the
That
catch
made
on
us
your
a little
bike.
bit nervous.
At least
Exactly.
at least you blended in though.
Yeah. I don't know. My bike was bright pink. I don't think it helped.
Bright pink with a white mark.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But
Seamless.
yeah, so when we got to sort of Zimbabwe, Zambia, where we started thinking, oh shit, okay, we need to get a bit of a hustle on us. We need to get up there and get in before they close the borders. Um, so we raced through Zambia. We chilled out a little bit in Malawi just because it was so much fun. I highly recommend just for a sort of retreat. You stay on the lake for a week. Um, some lovely locals, good party scene, everything, gorgeous scenery. And then from there, we made our way up to Tanzania, raced through the border, sort of freaking out, hunkered down in a big city called Mbeya, which is just across the border. And it was like our setup was wonderful. We were with this expat English guy, who'd been out there, I think 30, 40 years by this point. But he looked after us. He had a pool table, a fridge full of beer, his own butchers in his house. So we were set. We locked the
That's
doors, and for 2 days
that's
we were there.
best made fodder. Like that's best made
Yeah,
material,
that's like
So you start making
as
good friends with those
world-ending
people.
preparation. Exactly.
Smart.
But yeah, so we hunkered down with him, and luckily, wouldn't you know? I mean, the protest was fine. We didn't hear any action. There was no gunfire in the streets, no nothing. To our knowledge, nothing even really went on. I think my guess is what happened is because the first round was so intense, violent, so many people were killed, and just with no remorse from the government, people didn't want to chance it in the same way. Um, Also might have been in cities like Dar es Salaam, the capital, might have been more happening, but certainly where we were, we got quite lucky. So we pressed on anyway, made our way through. I had a few mechanical problems, and my radiator exploded, which was super exciting. um, Had a great couple of days there. Found us a radiator fundi, they call it, which is like a specialist basically. And he sorted us out. So we got on our way, made our way into Kenya, and then we were home free. We had a couple of nights staying with more of Max's family friends. Obviously, he's Kenyan. He knows a lot of guys up there. had 3 days when we got back to the farm that he lives on. We had 3 days of sort of winding down and catching our breath, doing a lot of work on the bikes. And then we went to finish the trip. We did there's a little place called Gilgil, a few hours from Nairobi. So we rode up there for the charity that we were raising money for along the way, to go see them, donate with them, um, and yeah, get to know them all. And it was fantastic, a magical few days, and also a real celebration for us because it marked the end of a sort of 4 month trip. Um, but yeah, really special.
Awesome. You capped it off with a nice party then.
Yeah, well, I could have kept
17.
going, but I didn't think a New Year's festival was gonna was gonna do the right
Oh,
thing.
so that was just what, 6 weeks ago?
Well, this was
When did
we got to the charity probably early December,
Oh
maybe
wow.
mid-December, and then from there we went down to the coast for New Year's. So we did a few things down there, did some off-road riding. I had a little bit of a run-in with my nose, which you'll see in one of the photos that I sent you.
I wondered what's going on with it. I didn't want to ask.
It's not a
It's
spot,
rich coming from
as
me.
everybody
This
seems
is what
to think.
happens.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's not
Talk about the plastic
it's not
surgeon and
acne,
the
unfortunately.
recommendation.
uh, but yeah, so we made our way down to the coast. I, I literally just partied for a week. There's a festival called Beneath the Baobabs. So that was really the sign off, the send off for our trip. Sort of celebration of what to us was a massive accomplishment. Having been through so much. But yeah, it was a nice way to sign it off.
Nice. So you mentioned the charity. What was the link there? Was it just a way for you to raise awareness as you're doing this, like a 2-for-1, or was there deeper lying meaning?
So yeah, a bit of both. The charity's called Restart Africa. And Max, my Kenyan mate, has been close family friends and sort of been in and out of the charity his whole life. Just in terms of um social circles, and when he was growing up at school, they did lots in sort of like working together with the charity. So he was very close with the owner of the charity, the founder, Mary Coulson. Um, and then Fred, by coincidence, our other mate, also knew her through family. I think his family had donated to them in the past. And also being that we were finishing an hour from Gilgil seemed like the perfect place um, to help out as well, since we learned a lot. Well, I was learning, but they already knew about the cause. And it's fantastic what they do as well. Um, so yeah, so our goal was to raise as much money as we could basically along the way for this charity. And we did. I think we got to about 1,500 quid in the end, which we were very happy with. Just added a nice note. Felt like we'd done it for something slightly bigger than ourselves. So yeah,
Perfect. So yeah, I'll drop a link and stuff, and you can plug it at
yeah,
the
please
end
do.
if you want, and anybody who wants to donate or bring awareness. So that would really help.
Absolutely. We've
So you,
donated the money that we raised, but I'll leave the charity stuff. People can go and find out. And if they'd like to donate some money, that would be fantastic in itself as well.
perfect. Yeah, we'll come back to that at the end, just before we leave. So you mentioned Namibia. Namibia, that was one of your favorites. You said. What else? Where would be the 3 places you'd recommend, or your 3 favorite places along that trip?
It's a very good question. Um, I think I think you need to be more specific when you ask me that, because I think I need to, like, it's different. Like in terms of the most beautiful, memorable place, I'd say no doubt Namibia. In terms of wildlife, probably somewhere like Botswana. For fun, people, probably Zimbabwe, just for Vic Falls. I'd like to. I haven't told you yet, but I think coming back from that trip, I like my dream is now to go out and live in Africa. I know for a fact that that's where I want to be, indefinitely. So I need to do a bit more recce on where I want to be. I think Zimbabwe is promising. South Africa, I loved. It just felt Cape Town was one of my favorite cities I've ever been to. But it definitely felt quite found, and the charm that I fell in love with in Africa with these guys, we met tens of them. And they were these guys that lived totally off grid, sort of very little contact to anybody but their family and close friends, but just had the most gorgeous setups in the world. Like their responsibilities came down to like basically like growing and evolving their own, like the location they were living on, working on what they're passionate about, and like little communities that are sort of bubbled, and they just live. Like I had, for example, Max's dad, where he lives in Limuru in Kenya, they have a group of about 20 of these guys. And every week on Monday, all of them come in, they play cricket. On Tuesday they play paddle. On Wednesday they play poker. On Thursday they play ball. And it's just the most tight knit,
Like
lovely group
community-based
of
then.
couples. Yeah, but and it really in a nice, supportive way. And nobody bothers them. They're up in the hills. There's no police. There's no. They can get away with what they want. And it's just a wonderful way of living. It just felt untouched, felt
That's Kenya?
sort of
Did you say Kenya?
tarnished.
Sorry.
That's in Kenya, and it's a hard thing to find in Kenya, because out of everywhere we went, the Kenyan police were definitely the most difficult people that we came across to deal with. We hadn't even crossed the border, and we were getting fines. You get pulled over for absolutely nothing, and they say you're not going anywhere until you paid us money. You're white. That's how it works. We call it African tax. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that spot
What
where they
else can
were
you
was
do though? I
wonderful.
think you have to
No, well, it's that or go
dance
to
to
jail
the
for the night.
song.
So I think
But
yeah, and they don't ask for extortionate amounts of money. If they haven't actually caught you with anything, a couple of quid, and they'll be on their way. Which is not so bad.
yeah, I guess. So you're looking at that long term then. That's somewhere you'd really like to go back to.
I think I haven't spent a lot of time traveling in Asia, Southeast Asia. So I'd like to go and do a bit more sort of reconnaissance out there to see if there's somewhere that I might prefer. But right now, without a doubt, beats the shit out of the UK. So I'll definitely live there
Really?
before I live here. Yeah, for me
You shocked
personally.
me.
Yeah.
I've been back for 2 weeks and yeah, let's not go there. All right. So what about anybody who might be listening or anybody you might speak to in the future? What kind of tips would you give them somebody who's going to embark on a similar trip? Is anything, again, things that you would really push them to do, advise, avoid?
So in terms of
Kenyan police, obviously avoiding them.
yeah, Kenyan police is definitely number one. For me, just as like a more theoretical approach to an adventure or journey like that, just going off my own experience from this trip, in hindsight, I would have thought it was a bad idea, but it worked so beautifully in our favor. And that was being wildly underprepared for what we were doing. And we knew roughly what bikes we wanted to get, and we knew not even for a fact, but roughly what countries we wanted to go through. Beyond that, we knew nothing. Um, and that played so well to our favor because just things would come up that never, I think the more you plan these things, the more incremental you get about where you're going to be where you're going to stay, what's going to come up. I think the less room you give your adventure to really surprise you and create sort of fun parts of. I think it's also an attitude thing. I think it was something that I started out pretty poor at, but by the end I was certainly getting a little bit better. And that being that when I look back on that. Trip now, it's not the great days where we absolutely nailed, like we got where we wanted to go and like we saw the right things and everything went to plan that I think about. It's not that I remember. It's only the stuff that went heinously wrong, and was actually brutal in the moment, like really unpleasant, really uncomfortable, that I can now look back on and think, well, that was fucking amazing.
Yeah. Take that step back and really get to reflect, especially when you're at home. I think when you've got that quiet, calm, that really gives you time to marinate, right? Perfect.
Yeah,
All right.
definitely.
So let's see. So like me a little bit. I'm a bit of an advocate for using travel as a means to take a step back from everyday environment, clear your mind, away from the chaos and the influences. Your friends from school, your work, your family. Influences that you throw up. Obviously, you're still very young. Actually, did I receive your disclaimer signed by your parents to do this, or
I think it's on the way. Don't worry about that.
on the way? Yeah, is it in the finger like before? So, so I'm always fascinated to hear about the influence travel's had on other people I've met along the way. What would you say has been the
Right.
most impactful trip that you've been on? Sounds like you've done 3 or 4 big ones. Which one would you say has been the most impactful so far?
It's a very good question. I think they've been impactful in different ways. I think for me, that South America trip in which I met you, was probably the most impactful objectively, just in the fact that it's opened my eyes to do so many or want to do so many more amazing trips. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life now. And in that sense, it's definitely had the biggest impact on my life. It's changed the way that I live, the way everything like that. Um, but yeah, I think every trip that I've ever been on has had different virtues. Not really on purpose, but I'm very grateful to say that we've done some very different stuff. I've done a lot of traveling with my sister, which is very special. Um, Last year alone, we went to Bolivia for a month together, and then Burning Man as well, which was a lot of fun. Um, but yeah, I think I think in terms of yeah, I don't know, I'm lost it, mate.
South America, that was a big one. I guess it's the age you were, it was very influential just because of that. Probably out of your comfort zone. As you said, it's the furthest you've been for such a long time. It probably set the standards. It was your first trip as an adult. This is me paraphrasing and kind of maybe putting words in your
Yeah,
mouth, but that's what I've got from you anyway. And what was it about it that made it so special or so impactful?
the South America one.
Yeah,
I think for me, it was like I was saying, it was the fact that I'd never done that before. I wasn't really aware of how big the world was and what like how many different route like paths that people walk and how lives that people live. I think that was special to me. I think it definitely sort of changed, totally blew my understanding of life out the water.
big eye opener anyway. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
definitely.
Obviously, you've had a lot of opportunities along the way. What's the greatest opportunity that travel has presented to you, and how did it manifest? Like, what did it lead to? What opportunities following from that?
That's a good question. Um, I think a big one for me was a trip I took with mum actually. Um, and this was only about a year ago. We went on a. Do you know what skinning is on skis? It's when you have like the up. Yeah, so it's like
No,
what's the word? Cross country skiing,
right?
basically.
Okay.
So you put these skins on your skis and you can walk uphill. And I went with my mum and a mate of mine and my aunt. We all went together to a place very, very north, sort of Arctic Circle in Norway. And we went skinning there for a week. And the group that we were doing it with hadn't quite realized when I was signed up for it, but these guys were ex-Olympians, people that do this 6 times a week, like proper hardcore. And at the time, I was a Bristol uni student that did no sport, hadn't skied in about 4 years,
Drank
um,
heavily.
drank heavily, possibly did things that I shouldn't be doing. And I think that was opportunity-wise, I think that, I mean, it woke me up because uphill skiing is pretty like, especially when you're at a little bit of altitude, and you're working hard, it's not an easy thing to do. And I think also being surrounded by so many people that were so driven, so focused, so accomplished, and all this was definitely a bit of a wake up call to me, and that I slightly need to get my stuff together. And I think in that way, it's given me an opportunity to pursue that now. And that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to get fitter. I'm trying to work harder. I'm trying to cut down on nights out, all that sort of thing.
Steer to a new direction then.
Yeah.
Nice. So you mentioned your family there, your mum. What influence have your parents or your siblings or even your friends had on your decision making over the years? You mentioned your sister also, obviously.
Yeah. So I'm very lucky in the fact that my entire family has always traveled. And when my whole family was together, we used to travel a lot. When my sister and I were little, so from a very young age, we've been far around the world. Very fortunately. So my dad is self-acclaimed. Well, I say self-acclaimed. He's pretty accomplished now, but he's an explorer. So he made some good money through business. So he's done some. I mean, he's done things that I couldn't begin to fathom. Like he was the first man to fly from the North Pole to the South Pole in a helicopter. He crossed the Bering Straits in a doohickey that he built. It was basically one big drill machine. He's been to most, if not every country on the planet. Is a proper all-time since he was like 16, has just spent his life on the road and done some pretty mega stuff in the process. Um, so yeah, I think that was definitely a big influence for me. I think growing up, funnily enough, I never, there's lots of parts about my dad's life. Like he's always very, like he's a bit of an engineer himself, very mechanical, like sort of build things, take them apart, very into cars. engine, anything with an engine really. And all this stuff was around me growing up, and I was never interested. I just wanted to play GTA or like PS4 or something. And in hindsight, he should have grabbed me by the scruff of my neck. He should have dragged me out there and made me do mechanical stuff with him and taken me to go on like a track day, which he did all the time and stuff like that. Because it would have been fantastic, and I'd now be
Would have made Africa a little bit easier, I
yeah,
guess.
without a doubt, I would have been a lot more competent, and also I'd have all
Yeah.
this. I'd have this head start in all the things that I didn't know I was gonna love, but I'm now falling in love with. And that's the irony: is having been surrounded by all this stuff since the age of 0, I now only now at 20 years old, 22 years old, am I actually learning to love it, and now want it to be my entire life. Which is a nice thing in a way, in the fact that I've actually fallen in love with it because I love it, not because it's what my dad does. But is less of a nice thing in the way that I just missed out on 20 years of experience.
Well, you got to find your own way, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes
exactly.
it takes a while to appreciate something, and that seems like that's the move here. So yeah, so that you've been surrounded by it, but you never actually took it in. So you've talked about your previous experience on the road, your family. If you could start again at 15, so maybe 6 months ago, with the same mindset you've got now, how would you approach getting to where you are now? If you could go back a little bit of time, what would you do differently? Or what would you shop?
Um, I think I would have started. I think hindsight is 2020 because you know exactly what you wanted to do. At the time, I couldn't have known that this is what I wanted to be doing. And with that being the case, I don't know if I could have done it a whole lot more direct than I have. I'd like to say that I wish I hadn't, or I dropped out of uni after the first year, and pursued the business stuff full time. That being said, I don't know for a fact that that would have got me much further. In any other sense. And either way, I'm here where I am today, and I'm very happy with where I am, very happy with my friends, my aspirations, all this stuff, and what I've done. Um, so to be honest with you, I don't know if I'd change that much. There's obviously minor things on in certain situations that I could have handled a bit better. But I think for generally at 15, I think the best advice I could have given myself, and the most important thing that I could have striven to remember day to day, was that that period for me, like between 15 to 20, was the bigger, and even for a bit longer, even still now a little bit, it's still ongoing. um but it's where you're really figuring out what you want to do, and that happens when you can expose yourself to so many different parts and different, doesn't matter if it's for work, looking at different career options, doesn't matter if it's in life, looking at where you might want to live, different countries, or understanding different peoples. I think just getting as much, like seeing as much as humanly possible, so that you can then have the confidence to pick a direction and then say, okay, that's what I want. And then I'm very fortunate to say at quite a young age, I might not get there very quickly, but I know where I want to go. I know where I want to be, and I know what I want to be doing. And that was a result of me traveling around, meeting so many people, understanding so many life paths, and then sort of having the information available to consciously choose one, and make an informed decision about what I'd like my future to look like.
Sage advice, young man. Very good. I couldn't agree.
Bear in mind that's coming from a
There's not much.
22-year-old. I'm not,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I'm much older than you, and
I'm
I'd
not
still
exactly
say
the
it has
stage.
merit. So very good,
Yeah,
mate. All right, so now the softballs are out the way. Here comes the hard-hitting, gritty stuff everybody's been waiting
exciting.
for. Quickfire round. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
There's a few questions here. So one or the other. City break or nature escape?
I always thought I was a city break, but I think I'm a nature escape. Well, that's what Africa's taught me.
Nice. Flexible hours or fixed schedule?
Wait, hold on. Sorry. Go back. When you say nature escape, yeah, I think no, I think we're same page. I thought you were saying like city break, like a break from a city or escape from nature, but you're saying
Going to
escape
the
in
city.
nature. Yeah, yeah. No, I'd rather go to nature.
Okay. Flexible hours or
Definitely.
fixed schedule? I think I know the answer to this one.
Yeah, I'll let you guess for me.
Right. Pass. Fixed schedule, right? Early mornings
Yeah,
or late
definitely.
nights?
Um, Late nights, definitely.
Oh yeah. Well, that's welcome to life, I'd say. What about a luxury
Yeah.
hotel or local guest house?
Depends what I'm doing. If I'm on the road, if I'm doing some travel, I'd rather do local guest house. But if I was just going for a few days, I'd probably have to pick the luxury hotel.
All right. Minimalist or hoarder? What would you consider yourself?
Minimalist,
A nice answer.
definitely.
It's par for the course. Backpacking or flash packing? No, you're getting a little backpacking or flash packing.
Flash packing, I've never heard that. I like it. Backpacking, definitely.
It's more me, I guess. Flash packing.
Yeah, I don't think I've had enough time to do proper flash packing yet. So I don't know as much about it, but I know I love backpacking. Yeah.
Nice. Let's see. Urban living or small town life?
Small town life. Well, I think for me personally, I'd like to do urban living for the next 10 years, make connections, make some money, explore the world, and then I'd like to retreat into a small town living.
Very nice. And last one, spontaneous trip or planned itinerary?
Spontaneous trip, without a doubt.
Very good. All right, mate. Well, I think I've taken up enough of your time for one day. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining me today. And then the many, many takes
Anytime,
we had
mate. Glad I could help.
sharing some of your wonderful tales with me and anybody else who might listen now or in the future. Like you said before, with your Africa trip, if you wanted to give a shout out to your charity, you can leave some information if you want to plug anything.
I'd love
Okay.
to do that. If I can leave the link to them in the bio for this, that would be much appreciated. And if anybody wants to go check them out, possibly some money, or just send them some love, that would be massively appreciated.
Perfect. A wonderful cause, I'm sure. If anyone wants to follow your journey, I'll put all your links on here, make you feel a little bit more popular. All right, Jago, thanks again, mate. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Have a great day and take care.
Thanks everyone, or anyone, for sticking around and listening all the way through. I really do appreciate your time. If you enjoyed this episode, the best way to support the podcast is simply by following, subscribing, and sharing it with anyone you think would get value from it. You can also find me on all of the usual socials, as well as those of today's guest, if they want you poking around in their business. I'll leave all the links in the show notes, so feel free to head there and take a closer look at my top tier content. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do that through my Buy Me a Coffee link. It genuinely helps me keep creating these incredible episodes and improve as we go along. And finally, if you're interested in working with me more directly, I also offer a travel consulting service, whether that's guidance, strategy, or help with selecting your pivot towards your new chapter. You can book a session through the link in the description. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you on the next one.